We appreciate you so much. You keep us going. And this is your voice. And today is going to be a freestyle kind of show. So we want you to be participating. We want you to get involved and engage in the conversation. And we have very, very wonderful guests and panelists as usual. And we're going to be talking about a couple of things. It's quite been a somber week, Judy. In Uganda, we've had many deaths. Even in the NUP, there's been deaths, and we will maintain a moment of silence just to express our condolence to the fallen soldiers. Shakila Nabagesera, that lady, a vibrant, young, patriotic lady, we lost her, and also another gentleman by the name of Fefeka Seruwogo. So we want to express our sympathy to the families and many other fallen soldiers. So we will begin by maintaining a minute of silence as we pray that the Lord, that their souls may rest in eternal peace. Yeah, may their souls rest in eternal peace. So we just want to tell you that a lot has been happening. It's been a somber week, many deaths in Uganda. But we thank God there is some good that has happened in the week that we have just concluded in Uganda. We also experienced a release of the political prisoners. As you all well know, friends of Uganda, towards the campaign, we had Bobi Wine's team, Bobi Wine's Campbell Trail team was all arrested in Kalangala, and they were like in their 40s, and they were incarcerated and arrested and taken to different torture houses and prisons, and they have been released in batches. They first released 18 of them and maybe another 10, and the last 18 of those we have Nubian Lee, Eddie Mutwe. Nubian Lee is Bobi Wine's singing partner and comrade and friend. There is Dan Magic, he's music producer. There's also Sky Soldier, a very young man of maybe, he made 18 while in prison. And we also have many other people who were bodyguards of Honorable Robert Chagolanyi Sentamu, Bobi Wine. So all of these were incarcerated and have been in bondage and in state detention and imprisonment for 6 months. So we just want to welcome back those comrades, those political prisoners. We're going to be talking about that, and we're going to roll the conversation towards that before we shift gears, and we will also talk about the rise of the COVID and how the government is handling all this entire issue and the pandemic, and how the government is handling and managing or mismanaging it. We will let you know, and Judy will take us into that. But before we go on, I would like to introduce our guests. We have a guest all the way from Idaho. We have Sarah May Clarkson. Sarah, nice to have you on the show. Sarah, nice having you on the show. Yeah. Can you hear me, Sarah?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's very wonderful having you on the show. We are very delighted to have you. Sarah is a friend and very patriotic. She's a friend of Uganda. She loves Uganda. She has been following Bobi Wine ever since the election and the campaigns. So she's a teacher and she's a counselor. She helps students in a school. She will tell us a little bit about herself in Idaho. And Sarah, it's very wonderful having you on the show. And of course, we also have one of our usual panelist and a comrade, Henry Masembe, who is with us, one of us, and he will also be sharing with us. Henry, you are welcome to the show.
Hello, Judy and David. Thank you for having me again. Thank you for, as usual, you know.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We look forward to having a great show. So, yes. Sarah, we're going to start with you. We want you to introduce yourself to our viewers. This is the U Voice, and we want to raise the voice of the voiceless, and we want to speak up. We want to lift up our voice so that we speak against excesses, injustice, impunity, corruption on the African continent and in Uganda, more specifically. So you are welcome to U Voice, and feel free to share with our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you know about Uganda, and what the good, the bad, the ugly, what really fascinates you about Uganda, and then we will roll the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to meet you all, and thank you for having me here on U Voice. I am flattered and pleased to join you today from Idaho, which is one of the western states in the U.S. It's very mountainous. It's a high mountain desert, so the climate is very dry. I was born and raised, though, on the East Coast, and I came to know David as a friend. He was a caregiver for our family, and I'm grateful, very grateful to him for that. I've been an educator for a really long time. I am Catholic by faith, and my social justice urges are very strong. But I've taught college students and high school students. I think I'm a curious person, and it is my feeling that as Africa goes and the nations of Africa go, so will go the world. And so it behooves us, particularly those of us who are white and privileged, to be watching closely what happens in Uganda. I'm sad and disappointed that the election did not go in Bobi Wine's favor. I'm deeply sad and sorry and horrified by the recent events in East Africa and Eritrea and Ethiopia. So I'm watching that as a citizen of the world, and in hopes of offering some support to those of you from Uganda and from other African nations, so that you, I hope, feel some support from the U.S. and the people you encounter here. So that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So what captivated your heart to begin following Bobi Wine? How did you start all this entire journey of following? Well, Bobi Wine is a compelling figure, for one thing, with a brave and interesting life story, and I see his sort of scenario playing out in a lot of countries, particularly those that are grappling with development and technology. When a younger generation comes along, they represent a challenge and often a threat. And so I read and watch the news, but I particularly became interested in Uganda because of you, young David. So I felt a need to follow that news closely, and I remember texting and inquiring of you last fall when it was election day, what the returns were, and that was national news. I want all your viewers to know here in the U.S. as well. And I listened to something called National Public Radio, and Museveni was interviewed twice. They went out to his farm where he has many cows in a country where people don't get to eat meat. And he sounded like such a benevolent, grandfatherly type. It was really interesting. It was just a very clever use of media, I thought. So, but otherwise, I'm interested in African novelists and writers and politicians, and I know a little bit about African history, and so I'm just sort of a curious person. Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. And one quick question again. The election and the campaigns were marred by a lot of violence. I believe you followed and you saw what happened. So what can you say about this, the blatant human rights abuse that many were left maimed, limping? We have a welfare department here in the NUP, in People Power, and Judy here happens to be part of the committee, and they are ever fundraising and helping people who are in hospital because of an election, people who have lost loved ones. Many died in that election. It was bloody. In a nutshell, it was a bloody election we've ever had in Uganda. So what do you have to say about that, and how do you feel? Do you feel the American and the Friends of Uganda and the nations of the world, do you feel their response towards Museveni's legitimacy, or the gross injustice that was meted on Bobi Wine's campaign team and the NUP political party and all the people who intervened in this election? Do you feel that America did their part? Do you feel they sent out a strong message to condemn the brutality, the injustice, the impunity that the Museveni regime exhibited in the past election? Do you feel, and what are your sentiments? What do you feel as an American citizen?
Well, I think America would be deeply hypocritical to criticize an election that was, which I think was a foregone conclusion, alas. I mean, I had hopes for Bobi Wine, but I felt confident Museveni he was going to find a way to be reelected. And in the U.S., as you know, or I hope your viewers know, in states like Texas and Georgia and elsewhere, there are politicians who seek in the same way, perhaps not as violently, but that I think is a possibility, to suppress the vote and free and fair elections here in the U.S. So America is in no position to be wagging its finger at, although I wish they would, at Uganda, at Myanmar, at lots of other countries. We are in an era, alas, where the autocrat is ascendant. So in Uganda, in the nation of India, in Brazil, in Hungary, the military in Myanmar, in Russia, and luckily for the U.S., we elected a new president, but there was 4 years of a deeply autocratic political tenor in the United States, and that is sweeping the globe, alas. And that I think is very much a generational phenomenon as well. Autocrats are older. They have consolidated power, which they do not want to give up. They're nationalists, they're racist, they're privileged. And this is the great conundrum with power. Power corrupts. And we will have to reckon with it here in the US and in Uganda and in many other countries in the world. I wish the US had been more assertive with the election results in Uganda. And America's just in a position right now where there are many global needs, and there are many tragedies and much sadness. And the U.S., alas, is having to be reactive rather than proactive. So I think we can only hope for continued vigilance and pressure through diplomatic channels that those who are incarcerated are freed, as happened recently, that there is an equitable distribution of COVID vaccines, that health care is provided to those who are sick and in need. So that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing with us. And as we change gears, as you take a little rest or a little break, I want to turn to you, Henry. Henry, if you can hear me,
yes, sir.
We witnessed the coming back. We welcomed back 18 of the last comrades on the campaign trail of Bobi Wine. These include Nubian Lee, Bobby Young, Sky Soldier, many others on his security team were released on bail with very strict and tough conditions that they have to abide with. So how did you feel about all this as you representing the NUP?
Well, we are relieved. We are definitely relieved because they've been in jail for what, more than 6 months?
Yeah.
More than 6 months now, for no reason, apparent no reason. They held them for more than 3 days without charging them. And when they charged them for possession. So they charged 49 people for possession of 4 bullets that they alleged they got somewhere in Kampala on a date that they were in jail. So these people were in jail. They took them to court saying that they committed a crime, and the date was a date that they were 2 or 3 days in jail. And since then, they've been in jail. So for their families, for their children, for their loved ones, we are grateful. But we go back to think how Museveni is everything. I said on this show that Museveni is the judiciary. Museveni is everything. He's all institutions in Uganda, where even Bobi Wine's car, Bobi Wine read a statement where it read that the URA, Uganda Revenue Authority, got orders from the president to release Bobi Wine's car. So this is, like Sarah said, she knew that Museveni was going to find a way of winning, of rigging and turning tables in the election. It's everything is at the mercy of Museveni. Unfortunately, you guys have talked about COVID. We know that everything is at the mercy of Museveni. So when Museveni says you get killed, you will be killed. When Museveni says get arrested, you will be arrested. When Museveni says finally release those people, we expect that they will be released. So now the thing in Uganda, they are talking about, how the courts released them, they gave them bail. We know they've been coming to court, to the military court, just for show, and they take them back for no reason, but they have to cook up a reason why they are going back to jail, and then they bring them. But we know that they had to be released at the time allocated by the junta himself, and this was the time. So we have to be grateful. We have to be grateful, but we know there are thousands and thousands of more sympathizers to Bobi Wine that are in jail. Right now, you mentioned a gentleman whom we know he was murdered, because I was just listening to the chief whip, Mr. Mpunga, saying that this man was lame. I think he had right-sided weakness, so he was using a cane, and he had weakness in his leg and in his arm. But this is a man that was found hanging on a tree with no cane in sight. So somehow the man who is lame managed to climb a tree in a kanzu. Sarah, a kanzu is our traditional outfit. Men put on a kanzu like the men in Arab countries. So it's a long white outfit. But this man who is lame managed to climb a tree in a kanzu and hang himself. So there is all signs that show that he was murdered, and after he died, his body was hung on a tree to make it as if he hung himself. We are living in such times that only God can save us, because Museveni is here to stay. Museveni is you were talking about his age, and compared to the average age of all Ugandans, that he cannot take us in the future. He's been here for 40 years. He's apparently, when you see him every year, he reads the plan for the year, the manifesto. When he was campaigning, he has nothing new ideas. It's the blind leading the people who can see, you know. So yeah, I'm sorry for going off on a tangent, but you asked me about the release of people. It's mixed feelings. You want to go, I wish I could punch Museveni in the face, you know, but we just have to keep shouting and making noises, you know.
Yeah, thank you so much, Henry, for your submission. And Sarah, a question to you: how do you feel? We want the world to know that American taxpayers' money is used to facilitate the Ugandan regime, the Ugandan government. And how does this feel, and what do you have to say about it, that America and many other European agencies and bodies like the IMF and World Bank, they are still loaning and they are still considering to give money to Museveni and his government? And this is the money that has been used to facilitate. It's also the SFC, the Special Command Force that guards the president, has also been known to be in charge of abducting these young people, the NUP supporters. And these are people who are trained by the Americans. So I want your quick take, your brief take, Henry, and then Sarah, to you before we change to another topic. Henry, let me begin with you, and then Sarah will wind up about.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I got the question. I thought you were asking Sarah.
Oh, the question is about how do you feel? I know you're also Ugandan, but also an American.
Me first?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that you all are citizens of America. You're American citizens. How does it feel that the American taxpayers' money is being used to facilitate these regimes, and instead of building hospitals, building schools, and all this kind of infrastructure, it's being used to buy drones and to buy tear gas and all weaponry that ends up hurting Ugandan citizens? How does that feel? And the SFC was trained by the Americans, and they haven't really stood up to really check the people they trained, and they have caused the SFC, the president's presidential guard, has caused a lot of mayhem and to Uganda.
Yeah, I totally believe that America is in a pickle with Uganda. I think there is a predicament there that Americans don't want to be in Somalia. They don't want to send their boots on the ground. So we know that Museveni is fighting for the US in East and Central Africa. So, and the other thing I've been thinking like these few weeks is Burma and all the other countries where Russia, North Korea. I feel like America has bigger fish to fry than worry about Uganda, you know. We are the same blood, we are the same people, but Museveni has tactfully situated himself as a useful idiot, as his army is very his army is able to go into these countries and fight. So he has staged himself geographically and tactically enough for the Americans to use him. It's us to find the right people, to convince them that what you're doing is not right. And if we get more people like Sarah to join our force, to find the right people, to convince them that you can work with somebody else other than Museveni in Uganda. Uganda has interest in Somalia because we cannot have an unstable Somalia or an unstable Southern Sudan. You don't have to partner with Museveni. You are still partnering with Uganda to be a stabilizer in the region versus partnering with Museveni.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't think the Americans are going to worry about my taxes or my vote or my whatever. They still have to do this, but we have to tactically find the loopholes and show the loopholes. Even COVID-19, I'm not sure if we will get there.
Yeah, we will get there.
It was okay.
Yeah, we're going to get there. Thank you so much, Henry. Really, we have to dig into all these issues. America has interests, and it's a battle of interest. So thank you so much. Sarah, your last take or comments about this very issue before we change topic.
Sure. I have a theory that the United States looks at Museveni and other leaders who had fought for independence, right? So Museveni's credentials begin, I would like to think, with some purity, seeking Uganda's independence from colonial rule, a good and honorable and I think appropriate goal. And so American lawmaker and old, I mean, you know, I don't mean to be uncharitable, but they're older. They come from a place are recognizing. I know. It just said I got a little thing that said the internet was not good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Wait a minute. You can. Okay. So anyway, that American lawmakers look at Museveni as a freedom fighter, even though that was how long ago? 40 years ago, 50 years ago. It was a while.
Yeah.
And so there is so he gets a little bit of a pass, and other leaders as well. But I think that from my perspective, the U.S. government spends disproportionate amount of money on defense rather than education, healthcare, support for public institutions like libraries. So it seems to me that much of American dissemination of funds and government is in an imbalance.
So what do you have to tell the common American person, not the government, but just the Americans, about their taxpayers' money being invested in countries where it's mismanaged? What's your final?
I think that is
say to Americans?
Yeah, well, and I think that what most Americans would say, alas, is, well, what about the mismanagement of funds right here in the city of Pocatello, or in the state of Idaho, or in the U.S. government? And so Americans are, I'm sad to say, self-centered. The universe revolves around us, most Americans. And so I think it's a matter of education, of building empathy. That's why I think international students and exchanges are so important. I would want all those sorts of programs to continue. So, but you have to do that sort of, one by one. You have to meet someone from Uganda. You have to meet someone from Nigeria or Burma, and understand their great respect for the U.S. but also the unbelievable challenges they faced. So it's a glacial and slow and tedious process to build up that kind of support.
Wow.
But you have to carry on.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We appreciate you so much, and thank you, Henry, for great deliberation. You guys, Judy, over to you, and yeah, you can take us on. What do you have to say about the release of the political prisoners? Start from there and take us on.
It's about time.
Yeah,
it's about time, and it's more than overdue. And it's perfect because this show is happening Juneteenth, and
I forgot.
Today is the Juneteenth.
No, it is. Yep.
And what makes this day really special? Just recently this week, President Joe Biden made June 19th a federal holiday, and why that's important to American history, and why our siblings in Uganda want to know about Juneteenth is that in 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation that freed slaves in the southern states. But it was not until 3 years later that the slaves in Texas were actually notified that they had been freed for 3 years. Why was this? Because there was not a big presence of the Union or Confederate Army, actually the Union Army in Texas. And so those slave owners got to keep their slaves for 3 extra years while other slaves were freed. And so when they were finally notified of this, it was, of course, a joy and a cause for celebration. And in fact, this week, President Bobi Wine posted that on behalf of the people of Uganda, I'm delighted to join the United States and especially our African American brothers and sisters in acknowledging and celebrating Juneteenth, the day when emancipation finally reached all enslaved. Despite the long road and significant gains since the struggle against oppression and injustice in America continues, as it does here in Uganda. So as we celebrate and honor the immense sacrifices made by African Americans in their ongoing fight for equality, let us also use this day as a reminder and reaffirmation of our commitment to the enormous work and substantive change that remains for the liberation of all people. So it's just beautiful that this last recent group of our comrades were released the same week that this holiday was made a federal holiday. So it's poetic justice, you can say. Yeah, Sarah?
Yeah, for sure.
That was good.
Yeah. And also this week, Uganda was put under their second lockdown as COVID cases increased. There were more COVID deaths that happened this week. And so we want to shift over to the impact of having a second lockdown without structures in place to sustain those who are not going to be able to feed themselves, who are not going to be able to work. A lot of the, you can say, the economic wealth of Uganda rests on those who are the common laborer, those who are mostly in the marketplace selling their vegetables and selling their wares. For this lockdown, the impact of this lockdown for them is huge and immense. And so I wanted to bring this to the table and open it up for conversation, both to Sarah and Henry. And I wanted to share some of the demographics that is in Uganda. So the population of Uganda is about 47 million people. Okay, 47 million people. To be exact, 47,081,731 people. And based on current projections, Uganda's population is expected to surpass 100 million people by 2050 and reached 167 million people by the end of the century. By 2100, Uganda's population is expected to surpass that of Egypt, the second largest country by population currently in Africa. The current lifespan of men and women in Uganda is 56 years for men and 60 for women. And the mean population age is 15.7 years for males and 15.9 years for females. So currently right now there's not enough data collected daily to see how many deaths per day are happening from COVID in Uganda. We do know that people die daily from old age. There's malaria still on the rise. There's AIDS, HIV, there's cancers, there are other things that have been killing that take human lives in Uganda. So the increase of the deaths in Uganda from COVID-19, how does this compare to those other deaths of natural causes, cancer, HIV, AIDS, things like this? And how many of the COVID cases are being reported are actual COVID cases. This is something that has been on the conversation table for some time now, given that Museveni has requested for more funds from the IMF, for more funds from USAID. Last year alone, I believe $400 million were sent in COVID relief to Uganda. However, we have yet to actually see the impact of the release of those funds. And so the conversation is, what is the long-term effect of COVID on a very young country? Sarah, what is your take on this? We can't hear you. There you are.
It's winter in Africa now, right? Because you're south of the equator, right?
No,
right on the equator.
We have the equator, so we don't have winter, Sarah. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
We have a dry season.
No, it's just hot there all the time.
It's nice.
Yeah. But I remember reading in the news that the world, or the those who reported, were amazed and impressed that when the rest of the globe, and there weren't hospital beds, that Africa had actually seemed to be managing their COVID cases relatively well. There are different theories about this because they had dealt with such a huge number of HIV/AIDS cases, because of Ebola, because of other highly contagious viruses. So I think that and I'm not sure, but also Uganda is, because it's an African nation, was slow to get vaccines. And I imagine, because so many people in Uganda have to work, that a shutdown, and I mean, you have just told me, I was not aware that a second lockdown had just happened. That is crippling for families and workers and children. And I am now, I have to say, I'm super concerned about the health outcomes for Uganda, and Judy, about vaccine accessibility. And it's really hard to maintain a cold chain, a critically important cold chain for some of the vaccines that require refrigeration at such low temperatures. It's very, very worrying. Very worrying.
It is. I recently read, and there's a little bit of research, that between last year and this year, last year there was, as of March 2020, there were about 54 hospital ICU beds, and as of this week there are 218. That's a 163 bed increase in about a year. That's still problematic for a population of 47 million.
Yeah.
That's still, and we, I don't know if you know this, Sarah, but we currently have no oxygen left in the country. There's no oxygen supplies in hospitals. So yes, so when we're looking at COVID cases, we want to see how well they're saturating oxygen levels in their blood. And so if they're low with oxygen, we want to be able to supplement them. But if there's no O2 in the country, how then do we mitigate that? How then do we, supplement low oxygen supply in the body? Most especially when Museveni has received all the funds that he could possibly have to prepare for a second wave, and to deal with the influx of COVID cases that would be coming in at a higher rate in a third world country than in a first world country. This is very highly problematic. Yeah. Highly problematic. Henry, what is your take?
Oh my goodness. This is crazy. this is crazy. I was thinking that we again, I will go back to one of the members of parliament, the former whip, Semujunganda. They asked him what the strategy for the opposition is before the election, and he said the one strategy that we have is to remove the dictator. Everything hinges around this dictator, that he has a disability up here, but he's the manager of everything. So when you say how are we gonna do this? What's gonna be the solution here? Everything comes from his head. He spits out statistics, he spits out numbers, he says this, and we're like, well, what does that mean? What are you saying? Where are we gonna get this? How are we gonna distribute this? His family is taken care of. His family is taken care of. So, Sarah, we were discussing a speech that our president gave. His speeches go for like 2 hours. And at the end of the speech, you have no idea what he just said. You're like, what did he say? So he starts reporting. You think he's a news reporter for 2 hours because he's giving you facts, things that happened. These many people died, these many people are in the hospital, and then he starts blaming the whole world that we don't have this, you are the president. You need to tell us how you're gonna do things. So we've had censuses. We do a census in our country. It takes like a week or from three to a week, and they can count people in the country. Why can't you vaccine people in the country? So this lockdown he did not put down a lockdown recently. He started like a partial lockdown where he closed schools. And when he closed schools, he said that the kids have to be back to their homes in 3 days. However, he put a curfew where cars, public transportation, had to be
off the road.
People had to be done by 6 p.m. So everybody rushed to the taxi park the first day to get home. They hiked transportation to a lot of money, like close to, I'm going to say $50 from somebody to travel from point A to point B. They were stuck in the taxi park. Kids were slept in like a field because they couldn't go to their homes, transmitting COVID. But like Judy was saying, we do not, right now, we wouldn't have needed any funds to help with COVID because our parliament passed more than 80 billion Ugandan shillings, which is a lot of money, to go ahead of COVID. This is in, I think, September. That money disappeared in thin air. So then we got a first batch of vaccines. Only the top tier people in the government and the family members of the president and the army and got vaccinated. There is corruption. Doctors have been selling COVID vaccines, So when you ask me a question, I don't know how to start because we are having a hurricane or a tornado, and somebody who has a mental issue is the one who is managing the situation. So there is corruption. There is people who totally don't care. We live in a country, our country, Sarah, if you are a woman, you come pregnant in the hospital and they look at you. If you don't have gloves, no one is going to touch you. You have to come to our hospital with gloves so the nurses can touch you. And the money. If you don't have, people died on the floors of hospitals just to give birth. And I like to tell people who don't know our language that in our language, they don't congratulate you after giving birth. They use a word that means as if you survived something. Like if you go to war and survive and come back, that's the same word that they use to tell you when you give birth in our country. So when you have COVID right now, I have a family member who has COVID. We are trying to get him out of the hospital because when you are in the hospital and you have COVID right now, you are almost going to die. Like Judy said, there's no oxygen. We are not talking about ventilators. We're talking about basic oxygen. Now people are buying oxygen. I heard of a couple that they rented two two canisters of empty canisters of oxygen. They rented them at 800,000 Ugandan shillings, which is close to $1 million. So that will be close to $500 renting empty. And then they had to fill them for 1.3 Ugandan shillings. And they say somebody who is mildly sick, requiring oxygen, they will need 3 canisters of oxygen a day, you know. So we are poor, we are borderline poor in the country. If you have COVID right now, it's a death sentence, and Museveni is managing it.
So Henry, one quick question from me. How do you think Ugandans are going to really go through this total lockdown? Because the president announced a total lockdown. One of the key things that really were highlights for me in the presidential directives, borders, motorcyclists, or motorcyclists are allowed to only transport goods, not passengers. Public and private cars are banned from moving unless they are taking patients, and patients have to have LC, local authority letters, a pile of letters for you if you are a patient. So in an economy where people, if they don't work that very day, so many do not eat, how do you see them succumbing to these guidelines of being at home for 42 days? What do you foresee as we prepare to wind up?
It's not going to work, because you just say the border are going to carry goods. The borders are hired to carry those goods. They cannot just carry goods without the people that own the goods. See, Museveni puts into place things just on paper and for public consumption, but they are not going to work. Anyway, I'm not going to go into other things. So to answer you, to answer you directly, it's not going to work, because you know our people. If you live in Kampala city and you are renting Omuzigo, you don't have a farm where to go to get food. How are you going to live? It's not going to work. This morning, I saw the news. Markets were full. People just walk and get to where they have to go. So people are spreading COVID at the highest rate right now in Kampala. The lockdown cannot work just like that. You don't just wake up and say, okay, I'm locking down the country. You first know the dynamics of the country.
Thank you so much, Henry. Judy, something else that really caught my attention is that something that is alarming is that in Uganda, what I heard is that the vendors, market vendors, because people were resorting to natural remedies like garlic and lemon and all these other natural remedies. But right now, as we are talking, I heard from very reliable sources. Of course, I have family in Uganda, and I heard that to just buy one lemon, it's almost $2 to buy a lemon. And this garlic, and for people wanted to treat themselves and to boost their immunity. So what do you have to say about that?
It's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for disaster. And we haven't even begun to talk about the increased domestic violence that has been happening with our young schoolgirls who have been sent home from school. There has been an increase of domestic sexual violence to our young girls, an increase in pregnancies, incestuous pregnancies, and there's little justice for these young girls who are being raped violently by their predators, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, because they're locked down at home with these predators. And in order for, Sarah, I don't know if you know, but when there is a case to report to the police, you have to pay the police to write down and to take your report. So how do we even start to have conversations about the the violence, the expected starvation, the increased expected deaths, not just from COVID, but from the lack of social supports that Museveni has failed repeatedly to give to our fellow Ugandans. That's not to say that there aren't any social supports in Uganda. There are. But the increase to fit the need is not there. And I don't think that Uganda is prepared, nor will it be ready to reap the benefits that could have been awarded them had we prepared. Especially post-COVID, we're going to have so many more ramifications, if not the extinction of a lot of people in the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. Dear viewers, as you know, it's very wonderful and an interesting debate and discussion here in the studios, but I want to open up the conversation to you. If you are there and you want to be part of this conversation, you want to call in, the number that you can use, our producer is going to put it on your screen. It's rolling on your screen, 978-413-6249. Feel free. You can reach to us through WhatsApp. For those of you who are not in the US, you can call this number, and we will it's our studio line, and we will be able to touch base with you. We are talking about all these topics here and how the Ugandan government is going to handle this challenge. It seems to be, from the conversation, it seems to be like Uganda is in between a rock and a hard place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can feel free to call in, and we will take your call and be brief and just stick to the points that we are talking about today, the release, and we are continuing to demand that the government agencies, that they free even other political prisoners, because the batch that was released, those are the prominent ones. And it was due to a lot of pressure. Many people here in the diaspora, here in the United States of America, in Europe, have been tweeting every day. They have been tweeting and pressing and pushing hard for the release of these political prisoners. So continue pushing and continue demanding for these political prisoners. So we have a caller. Yes, Dorcas, you are live on U Voice, and we are talking about the release of the political prisoners and the whole COVID saga in Uganda. Your thoughts about that?
Oh, please send me the link. Please send me the link.
I will send.
My
but
thoughts
what?
My thoughts are we continue to demand and we press on for all the political prisoners to be released. We are not going to beg and plead with Museveni. This is human rights. We have to have those people free. They desire to be free. Human rights are not optional, and we have got to keep demanding. We shouldn't demand forever. Yeah, he's got to free these comrades. They've got to be out. And it is so illegal for him to do that. For Museveni to keep holding people illegally. Yeah, he's detaining these people illegally. They've been actually abducted. They've not been arrested. They were abducted, they were kidnapped, and that is so illegal. It is very immoral. And we cannot have such a person and call him a president. So I am sorry, but I'll not call Mr. Museveni a president. No president watches their citizens suffer. We've cried out for help, and it's just ignored us. It's like talking to a brick wall. So we demand for our people. They must be set free. So I call upon the friends to Uganda and the Ugandans to stand up and speak up. Let's demand for our people. We want our people back. Hashtag bring our people back.
Thank you so much, Dorcas, all the way from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for watching the show. Thank you so much, comrade, for supporting the struggle and for pushing for change. Yeah, that was Dorcas all the way from UK. And dear viewers, that's the number you can call in, 978-413-6249.
So we wanted to hear from our viewers. Continue to call in. Any response to the continued conversation with Sarah?
Okay, we have a caller here. Hello.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Judy. This is Nsubuga, Massachusetts.
Yeah, thank you, Nsubuga, Massachusetts.
Thank you very much, guys, for the show. It's really educative and inspiring. One, I need to comment about the release of our comrades. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone in your capacities. Whatever you're doing, I need to emphasize it again. It's what we have been doing. The little we've been doing is the reason why those comrades were released. And if we continue doing those little ones, we shall have those others that are still in custody released too. Secondly, I want to comment about the Uganda-US relationship and why the US, I think the US is really quiet about what's going on. Comrades, I want to inform you that I don't want to believe that the US doesn't actually know what's going on in Uganda. As we tweet, apart from the tweets we make, the calls we make, the US knows what's going on in Uganda. I've had time to visit the Human Rights Watch website. The Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Oxfam, USAID, they've compiled documentaries, reports about Uganda. Uganda's plight since the early 2000s. They've compiled these reports, and these reports are submitted to the State Department. They are submitted, they're given to all the senators and representatives. So the United States is very much aware of what's going on in Uganda. But the thing is, interest, in red capital letters, interests. America's interests have actually outweighed their values. In the first 100 days of President Joe Biden, he stated clearly that America can achieve, or America can pursue both their interests and their values. But in my opinion, I think America's values have outweighed and continue outweighing their values.
So Nsubuga, finally, as you wind up, what do you have to say to the Americans, the friends of Uganda, the patriotic Americans who are sober-minded and who think well about Uganda, like Sarah here? What's your final say to them? What do you want to say to the American citizens?
First of all, I want to thank them, because it's very extraordinary to have people like Sarah really putting their best for the Ugandans. I don't know if she's been there or not, but I want to say thank you, Sarah. And to the rest, let's just keep pushing. We can't give up. We've given it our all, and the best we can give right now is to keep pushing.
Thank you.
Not give up.
Thank you so much, Nsubuga from Massachusetts. We love you so much. Thank you for always calling in. We appreciate you so much. We had many other people calling in. You can go on. We will take two more callers because of our time, and then we will wind up the discussion. Very, very interesting thoughts about that, Judy.
I had directed the conversation with Sarah. Anything coming up for you, Sarah, from this conversation? And also at the end of our show, we like to share with our viewers actions they can take to add to the struggle, to continue to push the pedal to the metal, so to speak, so that we can not only have all of our people out of prison, but to actually remove this dictator. So what actions would you want to have your fellow Americans take in light of the information that you've received on this call, and also their addition to our struggle? Sarah.
That those in in Uganda, in situ there, and those of you who are working on Uganda's behalf here, I know those are very brave actions on your part. If you're a young person and you're protesting in the streets of Uganda, you are risking your life, you're risking your livelihood, you could leave your children orphaned. That's an incredibly brave thing to do, and I would want my fellow Americans of every color and stripe and gender to acknowledge that. And I think it was Henry who said, or maybe David, I can't remember, that America is a global leader. That's a heavy mantle to wear as just a single nation in an entire globe. But I think America also struggles with what's the right course of action. If we were to put pressure on the IMF or the Global Bank or the African Union to withhold monies from Uganda, because I think that's what Museveni would respond to, right? If funds were withheld, who would that impact? Not Museveni. He lives high. It's all the people who count on international funds for schooling, for food, for clean water, for some healthcare. So the impacts would fall disproportionately to those who can least afford to sustain them. So that's a huge struggle. So I think we have to continue diplomatic pressures. President of the African Union and those who who oversee African affairs for the World Bank, for the WHO. So it's complicated. It's super complicated, and the people in Uganda who are working hard for change do it at great personal risk. And I would want my American friends to know that.
Thank you so much for that response, Sarah. Yeah, it's important that we on this side of the pond acknowledge the courage and the bravery of the young people who are on the streets day in and day out, literally risking their lives, the lives of their family and children, in hopes that they get to see a new Uganda. So thank you for that acknowledgement, Sarah. Henry.
Yeah. I mean, let me first piggyback on what Sarah was saying, and unfortunately, I'm gonna have to correct Sarah to tell her, sorry. Sarah,
it's okay, I got broad shoulders.
You got broad shoulders. So the money that comes from IMF and mostly all the development countries helping most of our countries does not reach the people it's intended to help. The money that has helped people, I come from the Welo, it's like 40 miles away from Kampala, and I've benefited a lot from money growing up that's come from England and the US, but it's coming through non-government organizations that are on the ground, that are making sure that they are running schools or they're helping hospitals. The money that countries like US give to the Museveni government, it's helping his family members, it's building the army so that he can sit or kneel on our necks. So this is what I was talking to a diplomat, an American diplomat, like 5 years ago. And he brought up the same issue that if we do something if we stop funding the government of Uganda, this is going to affect the small people. No, we are not affected at all. We are not affected if Museveni gets how many $1 billion. We are not affected if they don't give him a penny. We are not affected. We are not at war with any country right now in Africa. But Museveni is behaving like we are at war with everyone who is neighboring us. So his army is getting bigger and bigger. The budget for this year, he said the lion's share of the budget is going to go toward the army, developing and buying more equipment for the army. And we know that the people in Uganda, the youth and the sympathizers of Bobi Wine have suffered greatly from Museveni's army. You know, we've had high-profile assassinations or assassination attempts in our country recently, and we have cameras on almost on every corner of the city, and we've never held one person guilty of assassinating or attempting to assassinate somebody. But they've been capturing, kidnapping NUP and people who are sympathizers to Bobi Wine, hailing the cameras that, oh, we have cameras, they are finding them. So the monies that are coming into the country are used to torture the common person on the ground in Uganda. However, I wanted to talk something about COVID, that we want to tell the people in Uganda to protect themselves. You have to wear a mask. You have to social distance. Don't go to funerals because somebody died. So we see videos where people are at funerals. Even today, you will see a video there. People gathered together without masks. So to the common person in Uganda, they need to take this serious, that COVID is real and you need to protect yourself. The government is not going to protect you. The government is not going to protect you. And to the people who are taking oxygen in their homes, we need to do a teaching that oxygen can be very, very dangerous. Absolutely. Oxygen is very highly flammable. So people need to know as they take this. And we don't want people to think that oxygen, it's like pills or Tylenol, that when you have more pain, you can take more. You know, they cannot use that. So we need to be our own caretakers. We need to be our own keepers. And we really need to stop blaming first world countries for our issues. Because I had a minister the other day saying that we don't have the vaccines because America hoarded the vaccine. Well, America wanted to take care of themselves. We were busy stealing money that was allocated to take care of COVID, you know. So when there is an outbreak, we can't blame other countries for not taking care of us. What have we done to take care of ourselves?
Wow, thank you so much, Henry. What a nice way to sum it all up. Dear viewers, we are coming to the close of our show. Thank you so much, and it's been really wonderful touching base with you, comrades, with you, Comrade Henry and Sarah. Thank you so much. Great deliberation. Before you say bye to the viewers, we usually get action tips and points. Judy, yes, will you want to do that?
Sarah did give us our action tips to continue putting pressure diplomatically with our senators, our state representatives. We've done such an excellent job with the amount of progress that we've made using Twitter, using our Facebooks. And so we just want to keep the pedal to the metal. For those of you who are in different Twitter groups, listening to different, different people who hold different Twitter meetings to, send those tweets out to different government agencies, most especially the IMF, World Bank. Continue doing what you're doing because it is making a difference. It does matter, and we actually saw the release of all of these our comrades because of what you did. Because of what you did in the comforts of your own homes. We're going to continue to keep the pedal to the metal. We're going to keep pushing until we have all of our comrades out of prison, until we're all taken care of, because where one person suffers, we all suffer. So until Museveni's out of Uganda permanently, until everyone in Uganda has health care, has access to education, and is taken care of, we're going to keep doing what we're doing until we see those results that we've been praying, waiting for almost 40 years.
Thank you so much. Sarah, your final remarks, and you'll say bye to the viewers. And
having me again, I'm flattered and honored to be here and join you all. And I think that, as I said, and I think I'm a loyal American, people in the U.S. can be very, self-interested. as though they're not part of a larger, much larger universe, or if you're a person of faith, part of God's universe. We share this planet. I hope that we share a common empathy and care and concern. So just as Judy said, if someone is suffering in Uganda, I would like to believe that all Americans feel that suffering as well and want to use their great resources to help address it and make the world a kinder, a safer, a more fair and equitable place. And I think that happens with a certain mindset when you wake up every day. So that would be my modest hope.
Oh, thank you. It was nice having you on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Look forward to having you again and again. Thank you so much.
I would be flattered. Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Greetings to everyone in Idaho. And Henry, your final remarks, and then we will close the show. Henry?
Off. I think he said his Wi-Fi or his data was getting chewed up. So
okay. We lost Henry. He's going to take care of other engagements. Yeah, thank you so much, dear viewers. This has been a very wonderful discussion. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us in this discussion, and thank you for those who managed to get through via the calls. Again, next week we will be here, same time, same place. We love you so much, people in Uganda. Remember to take care. COVID is real, and take all the protective measures and wear your mask, social distance, and be very cautious. You are on your own. And on behalf of U-Voice, I would like to express our gratitude to our producers, Sean and Herman, and Ethel. Thank you so much. And we would like to, on behalf of myself, been David Chilavira, I would like to wish you a good night. And Judy?
A happy Juneteenth.
Wow, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.